Hello everyone, I'm the Quiet F, and this is my recap of Wistoria Wand and Sword. So, without further ado, let's recap. In Rigarden's Magical Academy, the most valuable and regarded trait someone could have is obviously aptitude for magic. But is someone who can use magic able to rise through the academy ranks? To answer that question, Will goes to the dungeon every day to slay monsters. Even if he can't do magic, he's sure he's gonna make it. In class, one student answers that channeling a bit of magic into the Balka ore and agony dust creates a lump of sulfur, which then is able to catalyze a flame. Then, Professor Edward Serfens calls Will to the front of the class, and he has to say his name a few times until he hears his call. He's not happy with the request because it seems to happen frequently. The professor asks him to cast a spell to catalyze the flame and make a fire. It's a simple spell, but yet he can't do it. The class starts laughing at him, except for one girl. The professor asks for silence, and he's disappointed at Will, because it is an outrage to see a student of Rigarden's academy who can't even use magic. But he didn't expect more from a student who is famous for only being a note-taker, and he sees no future for Will. Another student rises and casts the spell Will was trying to, invoking a huge flame that dances around the room and ignites the fire. Professor Edward tells Cyan to stop using magic when he's not asked to, and he apologizes. He mocks Will by saying he was just trying to help him, since he couldn't do it himself. The professor casts a spell to kill the flame and says that, in this world, the supremacy of magic is absolute. Magic is authority, power. Their heroes are mages. The only way to earn esteem at the academy is through your talent for magic. And someone who dreams above that station, a theoretical student who can use a single bit of magic, is not fit to study there and should quit immediately. After class, Cyan and his lackeys confront Will, saying that they know he went to the dungeon again to kill lowly monsters, and he asks him if he's not embarrassed. Then, Colette shows up to defend him and asks Cyan to stop. He thinks a true honor student like her should not be seen around a useless guy like Will. She replies that Will is kinder and works harder than all of them, and she will not let them offend him. Cyan says that kindness and hard work won't make a great mage out of anyone. Also, for a person like that, becoming a magia vendor, the highest rank among mages, is simply impossible. He tells Colette that spending time with a no talent like Will is a waste of time, and he should do what Professor Edward said and quit already. After they leave, Colette tells Will to not let him get under his skin, and that the professor was also wrong in making a laughingstock out of him. But he says it's fine. He can't use magic, but if he has a cute girl like her worried about him, he could count himself lucky. Colette gets flustered and starts blabbing non-stop and asking him what the hell that was, and he says that ever since he was little, he was taught to compliment girls, and that Colette was indeed cute. She tries to regain her composure because she comes from a noble family, and she sees that Will is looking at the huge tower in front of them, the tower where the Magia vendor continued to uphold the sky. Long ago, people knew nothing about the sky. They were trapped in darkness and terrorized by the celestial host, until 5 wizards rose up and drove the invaders away. They cast a seal over the sky and brought peace to the world. Those were the first Magia Vendor, a title that every mage desires, a title that has been passed down only to the strongest wizards. Colette asks Will if he thinks the Ice Maiden's wand, Albisvina, is watching over them, and he says she is. Right now, she's sitting by a window up top, looking that way. When Will was a kid, he made a promise. He was talking to Elfaria, and she said that the sun and the moon were floating up there in the real sky. And also, there's a beautiful sunset on the other side. She says that if they get as close as they can to the sky, at the top of the tower, if they become Magia Vendor, they might be able to see it. So they make a promise to see it together. But, to Will, it was just an innocent childhood promise. Elfaria was the real deal though. She was the youngest mage ever to earn the title of Magia Vendor and rise to the top of the tower. And Will, being talentless, stayed down, unable to give up on that promise and still scrambling to achieve his dream of staying beside her. Later, Will gets scolded by Professor Werkner for going into the dungeon without permission again. He went to the 7th floor alone, and he could have gotten himself killed, but he was able to defeat one evil guard and got 2 credits for it. The professor asks him if he still hasn't given up on his dream of becoming a Magia Vendor. In order to go to the tower, he first needs to advance to the Upper Institute, and to do that, he needs a tremendous amount of credits in writing, spellwork, and praxis. But since he can't use magic, he won't get any spellwork credit. That's why he's always hitting the dungeon and killing monsters. But the professor says that advancing through praxis alone is impossible, especially for someone who can't use magic. He might not even graduate. He failed to get credits on his latest exams, so he needs 4 credits until the end of the week. Otherwise, he will get expelled. He looks at his notes to find a monster that earns 4 credits, and Professor Workness says that a Baskerville Will was apparently spotted on the 6th floor, and Will hasn't defeated one yet. He thanks the professor for the help, but Sion heard everything from the hall. He decides to defeat the Baskerville himself to get rid of Will once and for all. Will enters the dungeon excited, but his familiar, Kiki, is a bit worried. Will says that he fought a Baskerville before, and he just needs to be careful with the monster's flame breath, and he really needs Kiki's nose to track it down. Meanwhile, Sion and his lackeys are also in the dungeon, and they agree with him when he says there's no need for talentless people at their academy, so they will deal with the monster and get Will expelled for lack of credits. His friends are worried about going to the 6th floor with only 3 people, but Sion is one of the elites, according to himself, and he is offended by the mere sight of a guy who can't use magic talking about becoming a magia vendor. He starts talking about searching the area for the Baskerville when the huge monster appears behind them, punching one of the guys and smashing him on the wall. Will hears the other guy scream and runs to him, and he sees Sion fighting the monster, an evil sentinel. This monster is worth 10 credits, but its habitat is deeper down. It shouldn't be on the 6th floor. Sion's spells are not doing anything. He doesn't have a chance. Will thinks he has to help him, but then he gets confused. Does he have to help him? After the way Sion's made fun of him, he has always bullied him, so he should just run away. But then he hears Elfie's voice inside him, saying that he's kind and braver than anyone else, and he remembers the time she gave him those goggles. But he was just a pathetic, shameful guy. All he wants is to stand beside her, to be worthy of her. That's why he will, at least, become a lone sword. He runs towards Sion and blocks the monster's attack. At the academy, Edward runs to Workner's room and tells him that Sion and his group went to the dungeon without permission, and he wants Workner to use his familiar to find them in there. Edward says they went to the 6th floor, and Workner tells him that, in this case, that won't be necessary, because Will is there. In the dungeon, Sion sees Will fighting against the evil sentinel and winning, blocking and evading all attacks, and he can't believe that guy is the same Will he knows. Workner tells Edward that Will is a true outlier. He has superhuman strength that no other mage has, a physique as robust as a dwarf's, and the observational skills to learn his enemy's strategies after seeing them just once. With those skills, he manages to avoid the monster's sword and cut off its arm, stealing the weapon to himself. He can't use magic, but in a world full of wizards, he's the one and only warrior. A slash of his sword surpasses even lightning, and he blocks the monster's beam, runs forward, and cuts off its head. Edward is seeing everything Will is doing, but he can't accept the fact that someone who can't even use magic is able to surpass it. Will takes the monster's head to Professor Workner's office and he gives him 10 credits for it. This is a story of a boy who would turn the world upside down. A tale of the joining of wand and sword. Well, that was the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. Also, hit the notification bell so you won't miss anything new. And I'll see you on the next video. Bye bye.